Welcome back to episode 42. This is the Movember episode. This episode is brought to you by Men's Prostate. Gentlemen, everyone at home, everyone listening, make sure you go and get your prostate checked every once in a while. Keep up to date, stay healthy, It's always a good thing to do. Am I right, boys?
Whenever you can celebrate
Yes.
a month of men's health, you got to do it.
100%.
And I will say this. Chad and John clearly are in support for the cause here with a couple of nice little upper lip hairy guys, couple of stashes on the two of us. Connor, I don't know if you're just choosing not to participate, but I actually also don't believe you can even grow a mustache adequate enough for the occasion.
I kid you not, it'll take me the whole month. By the last week, you'll kind of recognize a stash, and it's just straight grease. So it's not a good look, but you got to do it for men's health.
100%.
So you're saying
I actually shaved. I shaved on the 2nd of November. Will not be shaving my mustache again the rest of the month.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all aboard.
Here's the thing about it, too. I mean, if you're going out, if you're a male, especially if it's not your normal look, Chad, I don't know if you go out with just a mustache ever. Have you ever done that before?
No, I haven't.
But you're going to, right?
Yes.
You're doing this all month, yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
As you should. So, I mean, you're going to go out this weekend, and you're going to get a lot of compliments. I need you to go into this expecting to be a center of attention. It's a conversation starter. You're going to love what happens. You're going to love what it does for you. I always feel great. I feel significantly more confident with everything that I do when I have the stash. Like when I had it a few weeks ago, we beat Georgia. That's not a coincidence.
I'll
tell you what, November is it's a great month for meeting good dudes. Just meeting new friends at the bar. There's going to be a lot of dudes that are like, yo, man, nice stash. Some chicks, it's hit or miss. Some chicks are into the stash. Some chicks not so into the stash. But everyone respects the stash.
Every single guy loves a mustache. Like, if you see another guy with a stash, I almost always will say, I love your stash. Think of that what you will. But it's a good look. Men love it. We get it. Women are, as you said, hit or miss. So
you got to respect
it. Yeah, absolutely. It takes some balls to do it, to wear it out, to go out on the town and have the stash rocking. It's got a bad connotation. It's really unfortunate that it does because it's a good look for a lot of people. So,
well, it takes some balls to battle prostate cancer, so it's the least we can do.
Exactly.
And with that note, we'll slide into college football. Last week, just shit everywhere. Not too many good games. Did South Carolina even play last week?
They did. We beat Vanderbilt 24-7. Game was at 7:30. We don't know why it was at 7:30, but we did win that game. I really didn't even watch very much of it. I caught a few snaps when I was passing by the TV. I'd watch a couple of plays, but
I thought you were going with your dad.
So that ended up falling through due to timing wise. They still went. Him and my mother went. Came to Charlotte the next day. We had a nice little day, a big cleaning party in the apartment. But they went to the game. They left at halftime, I believe. Vanderbilt's just a poor team. My dad's, for the last 4 or 5 years now, however long Derek Mason's been there, been trying to get the guy fired. So he's waiting. He's the head of the fired Derek Mason fan club. On the flip side, South Carolina, we got Appalachian State this week. They just got knocked off. They're not ranked anymore. But I'm worried. I'm extremely worried.
So they're sitting at what, 5 wins? 4 wins?
4 and 5. We're 4 and 5.
We need 2 wins for the push.
We have three games left. It's App State, it's Texas A&M, and Clemson. If we see 2 wins in there, honestly, I think we could win the next 2 weeks. We'll see. A&M is vulnerable. I know we're gonna win week 3, so it's the last game against Clemson. I know that's a win. So we got to win one of the 2 before that.
Yeah, update on my other futures ticket. BC absolutely rolled Syracuse, recovering from the onslaught they received from Clemson the previous week. And they're now 5-4. I'm 1 win away from the over 6 ticket. I will take a big push. They have Florida State this weekend, Notre Dame the following weekend, and Pitt to finish the season. They essentially have to win this week for me to feel confident, or else they might lose out. Pitt's a decent little team.
I want to say something. I don't know if this has been talked about, if it hasn't been paying attention. Since BC, as you mentioned, rolled Syracuse, Dino Babers. This guy could have gone anywhere in the country after that big year with Dungy at quarterback, and now Syracuse is one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country. I feel like he screwed himself. He should have gotten out of there.
You should have.
It's like the same argument as, when a player's projected to go top 5 and they plummet.
I mean, they're horrible, dude. They don't have a defensive playbook this year. I think everyone's put up 40 on them. I swear. They're horrible.
Maryland put up about 90 on them.
BC ran for 494 yards that game.
That's pretty good.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible.
You could make the case that that's decent.
But the only really big game of the week was we had Florida and Georgia. Georgia eked one out. Honestly, not that good of a game. I'm so out on both teams.
I came away less than impressed, and that's why I pushed both teams down. I actually have Oregon over Georgia now. Definitely Penn State over them at this point.
I mean, I won't say that. I think it was just a gritty game, what people probably were expecting.
Georgia, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Georgia is every week we get farther and farther into the season. They are severely flawed. They can't stretch the defense, and teams just load up to stack Swift or to stop Swift. And he still had like 80, 90 yards against Florida, but if you can't stretch the defense, they're never going to beat an elite team.
I mean, Fromm played really well against a very, very, very good defense.
And no doubt. And they barely snuck it out. And that's with Florida, with Trask looking literally incompetent at quarterback. Like, Florida couldn't have played much worse, and they still only lost by 7 or whatever.
Trask was 21 for 33 with 2 touchdowns and no picks.
He was. Did you watch? Dude, he was bad.
Did I watch the game? Yes. Was it blurry? Yes.
Okay.
All I know is I had Georgia minus 6. That was one of the very few bets that I've won over the last several weeks. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you. That's a good segue into the college football top 25, though.
I have a bone to pick right off the bat with that.
Yeah. Well, let's review the rankings for everyone.
I'm only going to go down to hear the bone.
Okay.
I'm only going to go as low as 14 because, as ESPN noted today, that's the lowest any team's been ranked that's won it. To Chad's credit, it was the Ohio State team in 2014. They started out ranked 14th, ended up winning the championship. Good for them. So at number 1, we have Ohio State, 2 LSU, 3 Bama, 4 Penn State, 5 Clemson, 6 Georgia, 7 Oregon, 8 Utah, 9 Oklahoma, 10 Florida, 11 Auburn, 12 Baylor, 13 Wisconsin, and 14 Michigan. I do also want to note that Minnesota is undefeated and technically controls their own destiny. They're sitting at 17th.
I would say, before Chad goes, everyone 9 and lower is completely irrelevant to me. I'll be honest. Even the undefeateds of Baylor and Minnesota. I think Utah at 8 and up are the only teams that have a chance.
So, all right, I'll stay calm. But the whole thing this whole year has been with Clemson. They've played nobody. All right, we're all on board with that. And Clemson is justifiably ranked 5th. I have no issue with Clemson 5th. How, though, are you going to put Alabama 3rd over Penn State? Alabama's opponent's win percentage is lower than that of Clemson's currently. So if you're going to bash Clemson for playing no one, rightfully so, the same should be the case for Alabama. Alabama's best win is against A&M, who's the best team in their own division.
Who Clemson also beat.
Correct. So they both have the same best win, quote unquote. If you're going to, and I'm fine with Penn State above Clemson, all right? If you're looking at the rankings strictly from what has happened so far this year, Penn State has played better teams. They have beaten better teams. They have, quite frankly, looked better. But how are you going to leave Alabama above Penn State when Alabama's opponent's win percentage is lower than that of Clemson's?
Alabama has beat every team by at least 19 points. A&M they beat by 19. Clemson has not been impressive in their wins in that sense.
That's
Penn
one
State,
game. They had one game, the UNC game, when they just didn't show up. And you know what? That's fine. But I think one UNC game is a bit of an overreaction. And I think regardless of that, Penn State's beaten, teams handily as well outside of...
No, honestly, I'm kind of with you. I Penn State at 3, I wouldn't hate. I was just saying why Bama's rated higher than Clemson.
Okay, no. And for what you just said, John, I agree. Alabama should be above Clemson. But I'm just saying overall, Alabama has played no one either. I don't understand why Alabama is ahead of Penn State.
Because of their name. Because of their name.
Under that same argument, though, under that same argument, wouldn't it make sense for LSU to be ranked number 1 with their impressive wins versus that of Ohio State?
That is fine, but hold on, hear me out again. So LSU's 2 ranked wins of teams currently ranked are Florida Auburn, ranked 10th and 13th. I believe
Texas.
Texas is not ranked, so throw them out for a second. So 10th and 13th, they've beaten by a combined score of 65-48. Okay. Ohio State has beaten 2 ranked teams, ranked 12th and 20th, by a combined score of 80-7. To me, and you can make the case for Florida, but Florida's bad.
Listen,
and Indiana's 7-2, which would be Ohio State's 3rd best win. If you're going to look at 3rd best win, Texas is LSU's 3rd best win. Indiana is Ohio State's 3rd best win.
Listen, all right. So let's break it down. Number 1, you can't tell me that Texas isn't a better football team than Indiana, despite records, rankings, etc.
If Indiana and TCU were to play this week, I think the line would be about a pick 'em, and it was TCU that beat Texas, correct?
Sure, but that's so removed from Texas playing Indiana.
I genuinely don't know on a neutral site that I would absolutely lock in Texas over Indiana. Indiana's not bad. They can throw the ball around.
I'm also going to pick a beef that Florida is significantly better than Michigan State as a football team.
It's Wisconsin.
Yeah, but you counted Michigan State as one.
No, he didn't.
No. 20 is Cincinnati, who's 8-1.
20 is Cincinnati, yeah.
Regardless, Florida better team than Cincinnati, and honestly, you're counting who is the number 1 win Ohio State has
Wisconsin versus LSU's win against Auburn, who has a really bad quarterback and probably the 4th or 5th best, probably the 5th best team in the SEC that will wind up losing 4 games this year. That is Auburn.
Touche. Regardless, it doesn't matter at all because 1 was going to play 4, 2 is going to play 3.
100%.
2 plays 3 this weekend, actually. Are you worried, though, with the jinx that no team that's been ranked number 1 in the first released rankings has won the national championship? Last 3 champions have all started ranked number 2.
I mean, I definitely am. It's definitely something I think about, but at the same time,
that's just a coincidence, dude.
Yeah, I don't know.
John
very
hates
superstitious
trends for the listeners at home, if you weren't aware.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can confirm that.
So another area, I want to look at teams 6 through 8 quickly. So it's Georgia 6, Oregon 7, Utah 8. Do you guys agree with that?
I don't think Oregon should be any higher than 9, to be honest. I would even probably slot Oklahoma ahead of them if we're going eye test.
So if there's a 4-team playoff between the top 1-loss teams, so a 4-team playoff between Utah, Oregon, Georgia, and Oklahoma, how would you rank those 4 teams?
Are we basing this off of what's actually happened this season or off of what I think of the teams? Based off of what
we're talking about the rankings, so based off of what has happened this season.
I would say, I know, I got mine. Connor, do you need a second?
Yeah, I would. I'd love one.
Utah, followed by Georgia, followed by Oklahoma, followed by Oregon.
I would probably go Oregon, and then Georgia, then Oklahoma, and then Utah. And the reason being, Oregon's lone loss to Auburn, not that bad of a loss looking back. If we're looking at the standings right now, Georgia lost to, I'm sorry, John, a shitty South Carolina team. And Oklahoma also has a very bad loss to Kansas State. Utah, also not a good lost to a third-string quarterback against USC. So for that reason, I think Oregon would get my number 1 spot. And then I think Oklahoma, just based off the eye test, would slot in after that. And then really Georgia would obviously slot in after that based off their strength of schedule and wins. And then I think Oklahoma and Utah are pretty interchangeable based off which team you think is better on paper, slash what you've seen.
I tend to agree with you. Looking at all their losses, I think Georgia has the worst loss of the 4. I think, for Utah, it's a Friday night road loss to US. It might have been home, but regardless, a Friday night loss.
It was on the road pretty early in the season.
Yeah, and a Friday night.
I think it was week 4, to be honest.
Yeah, so a Friday night road loss to USC. Oregon has a neutral site loss to a currently ranked team, and then Oklahoma has a home loss to a team with they have 2 losses, right? Kansas State.
Yeah. They're currently ranked. They're currently ranked 16th in the college football playoff rankings.
But how they lost, that was bad. So I guess what I'm saying is I think based on what's happened so far this year, I think Oregon should be ahead of Georgia. But at the same time, I also don't think Auburn's that good, and I think by the end of the year that loss for Oregon won't look as impressive.
You know what? I take back. I'm actually going to put Oklahoma at the top of my list because I actually think Kansas State's a pretty good team. That's a loss. You look honestly, and I take back what I said earlier because they're ranked 9, which I think is low. So I'll say 9 and higher have a chance because I think they're still in it after further evaluating mentally.
I will say, I did want to ask, what do you think the significance is of losing to a team early in the season? For example, Oregon lost week 1 to Auburn versus Oklahoma just lost to Kansas State a couple weeks ago. Is that going to make a difference in the final polls?
Yeah, it's always better to lose early, for sure, if you're going to do it.
Yeah, I think if you're really getting into the nitty-gritty, losing early is always better. But at the same time, which has been the case for Ohio State the last 2 years, it's how you lose, and who you lose to. Like Georgia, that South Carolina loss is bad. And for Oklahoma, they got their doors blown off by Kansas State. Those are 2,
Did only lose by a touchdown, though.
I'm
just saying, if the way they evaluate some of that stuff is using some sort of algorithm, it's going to count that they only lost by 7.
Oklahoma does have 2 ranked matchups left, plus the championship game if they win out. Baylor's at 12 and Oklahoma State sneaks in at 23. And TCU's not a terrible. They're mediocre, but they're not terrible.
Yeah, that's why I'm honestly thinking.
If Oklahoma wins the Big 12, they're honestly very, very. They have a strong chance, depending obviously on how other teams do.
So you think Oklahoma wins out and wins the Big 12? They would get in over one of those, either Utah or Oregon, assuming one of them finishes with 1 loss. I think they're too far back.
I'm not saying that quite yet.
All right, so I'm
saying they have a chance. Their hopes are certainly not dead.
Okay. I want to propose a hypothetical then. So let's say Alabama beats LSU. Ohio State beats Penn State eventually. So we have Ohio State and Bama undefeated, as well as Clemson. Mm-hmm. Then we have 1-loss teams that include LSU, Penn State, Oregon, potentially Georgia, and Oklahoma. I'm assuming Oregon beats Utah. You can swap either one of them. One-loss Pac-12 team. Which of those teams do you slot in at the 4 spot? Does LSU get it automatically, or is there a case to be made for, say, an Oklahoma or someone else?
Whew. That's tough.
My personal opinion, I think LSU, assuming they don't lose 2 games, has almost locked themselves into the championship or into the playoff.
I would personally say it would be really close between LSU and Penn State, but I think, like Connor had just mentioned a few moments ago, that LSU game being 2 weeks before the Penn State game. So LSU hypothetically losing 2 weeks before Penn State loses goes into it a lot. So that's why I would give LSU the advantage there. If we're looking at a 1-loss LSU versus a 1-loss Oregon, that is really close. Or Utah, either one. John, what do you think?
I mean, 1-loss Oklahoma. Are you forgetting about that?
I honestly think that they make the best argument aside from LSU.
So we currently currently both Pac-12 teams are above Oklahoma. So far this year, the committee believes that Utah and Oregon have been more impressive than Oklahoma. So let's say it's Oregon wins.
Oklahoma has 3 more ranked matchups versus
Yeah.
Oregon and Utah's lone remaining ranked matchup would be the Pac-12 championship game against each other.
Which is going to be another top 10 win.
Right.
So
it depends. Do you value that top 10 win more than 3 wins against the AP top 25?
I value this. If Oregon wins out, that means they won 12 games in a row and they went 10-0 in their conference, which I don't know if a team's ever like gone 10-0 in a conference. So outside of Clemson last year. So I think that's more impressive than Oklahoma with 1 loss.
I don't hate it.
It would be interesting. I really hope that there's a mix-up in the playoff this year. Like, I'd love an LSU or Penn State. Would love to see a. I kind of hate when the Pac-12 teams get in traditionally because they usually get blown out. But this year, I feel like these teams might actually be able to contend. So we'll see.
I will say before we move on, Connor, going off of your hypothetical, if it were Alabama that lost to LSU, and it was Alabama, what?
I think Bama would get in automatically.
See, I think the opposite. I think if LSU loses, they have a better chance of getting in than if Alabama loses. I think if Alabama loses and Penn State loses, they both have 1 loss. I think Penn State gets in over Alabama. I think because LSU's ranked higher and Alabama's 1 loss would be at home to LSU, I think that would drop them more than it would drop LSU if they were to lose.
Yeah, and they're also favored by about a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, actually, I saw some guy, some bookmaker released hypothetical odds today for Clemson versus the top 4, and believe it or not, he had Clemson favored by 3 against LSU on a neutral site.
What about Ohio State?
He had Ohio State favored by 3, and he had Alabama favored by 1.5. Pretty interesting note.
What about Penn State?
So now I have the odds for next week pulled up in front of me.
Did you see it? Did he say anything if Clemson played Penn State, what that line would be?
He did. I just unfortunately don't know it off the top of my head.
That's fine. Let's pick games this week.
This has got to be hands down the best slate of the year, I would say. Dude,
I feel like every week we've been saying how terrible it is. That's exciting to hear.
Yeah. So the first big game is right at noon. Number 4 Penn State goes to number 17 Minnesota. Both teams undefeated. Winner of this game essentially wins one side of the Big East. Yeah.
Big Ten.
They're on Big Ten. They're on different sides now that I think of it. I believe Minnesota's on the same side as Wisco.
Yeah. Wisco is praying that Penn State wins.
Yeah. So the spread of this game is Penn State favored by 6.5. I'm going to go out and say I think this is the traditional. Every year you get a team that's undefeated too late in the season and they get smacked by a big dog. I think Minnesota is going to get slaughtered this week. So I'm definitely going to be on Penn State.
I agree. And it's a catastrophe that this game's at noon, an absolute joke to college football scheduling, along with the SEC game being at 3:30, but that's a bitching session for another time. But I agree. I think Penn State wins by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you there, honestly. So because at first I kind of was like, yeah, Minnesota could keep it close because they're at home, and then I'm gonna mentally self-fade and go into that mode and pick Penn State with you guys.
The self-fade, we love it. And then I don't understand why this game's at 3:30 rather than 7:30. But number 2 LSU goes to number 3 Alabama. both 8-0. LSU 6.5-point underdogs going to Tuscaloosa. I feel like every year this game is close. However, I really am hoping that LSU will slide to +7 because I very easily could see it being 7-6 Alabama and them scoring a late touchdown and winning by 8, which would be a heartbreaker, or being 7-7 and them scoring late. So I really hope to get LSU at +7. We'll probably hop on them at +6.5 regardless, but that's my thought process behind it.
You think this game is going to be low scoring?
No, I was just using that as an example. I just think it's going to be close.
Okay.
Every time they play,
I
it's
was
close.
gonna say,
And,
I think
and
this is gonna
historically, it's been close and low scoring. However, this year, I think the defenses are down and the offenses are up.
I think it's going to be a very exciting, little bit of a shootout potentially on the horizon for an SEC. Not like a Big 12 shootout, but more than you'd expect. I love the Tigers. I love LSU. I think
Go Tigers.
that they will definitely cover. It's just a matter of, do I think they win? I do. They're going to win this game. LSU,
Wow.
I'm saying it right now, LSU is going to win this game. Hold that Tiger. There's something in the air over there. They're a special team this year.
God, I love my boy Joey Burrow. He's a Buckeye for life. You guys saw it in that interview, but ain't gonna happen, Mr. Burrow. Alabama's gonna win by 10-14.
Do they cover though?
No, I think
Okay.
Alabama 10-14. Yeah.
Another
think
more low key, but I think a game that especially John will have a betting interest in. Kansas State travels to Texas. As we mentioned, Kansas State's ranked 16th, Texas unranked. Texas is favored by 7 points at home, a full touchdown.
These
Got it.
Texas games this year have had some of the wildest, weirdest, most confusing spreads. And I think it's a matter of Vegas and Texas have a relationship. There's nothing else you can say about it. I think that they were only like, Chad, what was the Kansas game? It was like a really tight spread and you slam Texas and then they almost lose to Kansas.
Yes. Yeah.
There's been some suspicious spreads for them. So Vegas knows something in these games. For that reason, I think Texas is going to slaughter Kansas State. So that's just a Vegas nose line more than I've ever seen.
Okay. This is a game, if we're looking at it from the broader scheme, I think Oklahoma fans have got to be all out rooting for Kansas State to have that good loss on their resume. But I like Kansas State +7, but a close loss.
Okay. I think I'm going to be hammering Kansas State +7 too. Another ranked matchup, we have number 18 Iowa traveling to number 13 Wisconsin. Wisconsin favored by 9.5. I low-key love the Hawkeyes in this. With 9.5 points, I think this game very easily could be 20-13, 20-17.
So I thought this game was at night and just realized it's a 4 p.m. game, so we have no ranked matchups in the evening, which is just unbelievable. But I was on my do not bet list. I think they're absolutely god awful. They're boring as hell to watch. This is a glaring flag no bet game for me. But if I were to look at it, consider something, it'd probably be the under. Just knowing the two teams and how boring they are.
I like Wisco -9.5.
Okay. And then another game that caught my eye, it's personally my bet of the week. We have Iowa State going to number 9 Oklahoma. Oklahoma only favored by 14.5 at home. Someone got to fact check me on this, but I believe it's their lowest spread of the season. I'm going to be hammering Oklahoma in a revenge game here. And by revenge, I mean revenge from last week, not necessarily revenge on Iowa State. That's my lock of the week.
I really, really like that. That's a good bet, Connor. Chad, do you have your lock of the week? You going to tantalize the listeners here real
John,
quick?
I think you need to give your lock of the week first.
Chad, I think you need to give your lock of the week, buddy.
Okay, I can do that. And just to update
All right.
from last week, my first ever successful lock of the week, I picked Illinois.
I have our locks from last week right in front of me, actually. Just give me 1 second here. So, last week in college football, we had John took Auburn minus 18.5.
I know that did not hit, and I also can confirm that I was so distraught at how poor the day was. That was a night game. I didn't even touch it, so that's a good thing.
Chad, you were on Illinois minus 21.
Yeah. They won by 28.
That's a good pick. And I selected West Virginia plus 17.5. They only lost to Baylor by a field goal. The boys were 2-1 last week. Technically 2-0. John didn't even bet it. He's a fraud. But we want to let you know that we do try to bet these picks as much as possible.
I have every time. It's just this week at that point it was already just a massacre. It was bloody. It was a massacre, dude.
All right, so my lock of the week, I have two, but I'll give you one. I have Purdue plus 2 at Northwestern.
That's the grossest game. I don't even want to see that game on my TV.
Northwestern hasn't scored an offensive touchdown in 44 straight offensive series, so I'll roll with the Boilermakers.
That is unbelievable.
I swear I heard that recently. You may need to fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
I believe it. They're not very good.
No, they're not. My other lock is Ohio State minus 43 against Maryland.
Okay. My lock of the week, it's going to come on a Friday. I just realized that this game is a Friday night game, 10:30 p.m., a sweet spot for a gamble. 10:30 p.m. Friday night, college football. Ease you into the weekend here. Just a little, I'm 4 Bud Lights deep. What's on TV tonight? So we find ourselves watching Washington at 5-4 on the road against Oregon State. 4-4. Washington.
I love betting on Oregon State. I just want to let that known.
Washington is a 10-point favorite here on the road. Coming off a loss to Utah at home. Oregon State, Friday night, Beaverville, it might be really, really lit, fiery atmosphere there. Give me them plus 10 at home. Friday night, college night, Bud Light night. That was an unpaid ad right there. Bud Light got a free one, so that's good for them. But give me Oregon State with the points at home, lock of the week. Friday night special.
All right.
I love the Oregon State Beavers. I love betting on them. And then before we transition to some professional sports, we did have college hoops tip off last night. Only 2 games really worth mentioning. We had the Champions Classic. First game was Duke taking on Kansas. Kansas committed 28 turnovers. Duke ended up winning that game by 2 as an underdog. And in the second game, we had Kentucky knocking off Michigan State, the number 1 team in the country. I will say Kentucky outplayed them most of the game by a significant margin. It got close at the end. Any takeaways from opening night? I just want to say Duke is back. I love Duke basketball. Cassius Stanley looked great. Matthew Hurt looked great. Trey Jones looked great. We got to figure it out on offense, but they're going to be all right.
My takeaway is that Maxey guy for Kentucky is absolutely insane. He will be a finalist for the Naismith this year.
He had 26 points in his debut. Pretty damn good. And the game-winning – well, they were winning already, but the game-sealing shot.
Yeah.
I'll say this. In about a month from now, month and a half, month probably, conference play begins, correct?
Well, ACC started yesterday and tonight for some reason. I don't get it. I don't understand it, but
so traditionally speaking, I'm a traditionalist. This is every year. I don't know if I watch a single game until conference play starts. I don't care at all.
I mean, that's not a bad way to do it.
I will not know more than 3 players in all of college basketball until middle of December, probably. And then I'm fully, I'm getting into it. It's starting to tingle me a little bit. Now I'm into college basketball, but
fully torqued.
There's too much going on right now. I have no idea. I think we were talking about you guys in the group chat yesterday. I think Baylor played like Southern Methodist Christian High School or something and like beat them by 4,700 points. I just don't care. So I'll pick it up when conference play starts. I know there's a couple big games in the beginning of the year, but
so
Can't
Chiefs
wait
aren't-
to see. Can't wait to see who this year's Jarrett Culver is, who Chad claims is amazing at the last possible second.
Never said he was.
Fell in love
amazing.
with Mr. Culver last year, that's for sure.
So before we let Connor go, he's got to get off to a little show. I'm gonna give you guys. I'm sure the other two boys don't have this thought about yet, but I'll give everyone, folks at home, a little preview in my preseason. I'll still consider this preseason Final Four picks. Okay, first team I have in the Final Four is Louisville. I think they win the ACC. They are legit. The second team that I have locked into the Final Four is Duke. Don't need to say anything about them. The third team I have locked in will win the Big Ten, and that is Maryland. And then the fourth team that I will lock in, they'll probably be a 3 to 5 seed in the tournament, and I think they'll make a run, is Washington. So there is Chad's preseason Final Four picks.
I like those picks. Washington, one of my preseason picks as well. We'll see how that goes.
All right,
And we'll be back after this.
Adios.